DH-88s from would-be race competitors. One of them was bought by James and Amy Mollison. Amy Mollison having been the former Amy Johnson, as she would later also be. Another was bought by the Australian racing driver Bernard Rubin, and a third by Arthur Edwards, managing director of the Grosvenor House Hotel in London. And that was this aeroplane, which is named Grosvenor House. As it runs in towards us, you can see this is a highly streamlined design with a very, very small frontal area. It has 2 seats. Of course, it's got a retractable undercarriage. And to power it, the bespoke R version of de Havilland's Gypsy 6 engine, which had been developed in its original form for the Dragon Rapide. The first flight of the Comet wasn't made until the 8th of September 1934. This one followed just over a month later, and then there was just in excess of a week until the race start. It was to be flown by Charles W.A. Scott and Tom Campbell Black. Scott had never flown a twin-engined aeroplane before he got his hands on this. Here at Duxford, and they're quite late additions to the programme, brought in last week to help.
We're talking about the engines on these aircraft. Of course, the ailerons have also been altered. Yes, because they need very powerful ailerons to handle the balance of the aircraft.
Yes, indeed they do. David Farrell knows this flown about this man now. He has flown in excess of 1,350 displays, and he's flown something like 7,000 uploaded now. 7,000. Wow, that's what it says here. He's going to be one of the most experienced wingwalk pilots in the world. Vic Norman's the team that found probably the most experienced, I think, but Dave runs him a close second. Interestingly, Vic told me that when the team goes to China, which it still does when they're hired to appear out there, they're still known in China to this day as UBB, Utterly Butterly Barnstormers, years after the sponsorship finished. This team has brought wingwalking to countries that's never seen it before. Imagine when they first went to China, nobody there would have ever seen anything like it. Hawker Fury 1 of the historic aircraft collection. And I suspect, yes, following it off is the Supermarine Spitfire 1A of Imperial War Museums. They'll be our next act, but the wing walkers climbing above them for their next manoeuvre. In front of us now is not just the sole airworthy Hawker Fury biplane in the world, but the sole surviving Fury biplane in the world also. In many ways, this is the quintessential interwar RAF biplane fighter, the second in the line of frontline Hawker biplanes after the Hart light bomber. The Fury first flew in 1931. It entered service the same year with number 43 Squadron, whose markings this aircraft carries. The Fury grew up from a submission in 1928 from the Hawker Company for a new RAF interceptor. The design's performance was transformed when Rolls-Royce's new V12 engine, which went on to be named the Kestrel, soon came about. This was the first RAF fighter to be able to exceed 200 miles an hour. It was very, very agile. It had splendid climb performance for interception tasks, though the corollary of that was a trade-off in terms of range. Tactic was raids against Germany deep into Germany, and as the Allies gained air superiority, losses decreased, although flak was still a significant danger. And conditions for the crews who flew on board these American heavy bombers at altitude were not the best. It was noisy, it was cold, they had little in the way of personal armour plating or protective equipment, and then there was the ever-present threat of enemy action. With smoke on to represent 2 damaged engines, but also to long-time B-17 Preservation Sally B team member Darren Smith, who passed away recently. The thoughts of all the Sally B team are with him. On D-Day, it wasn't just the US Army Air Forces that flew Mustangs, the RAF flew them as well, and not the Packard Merlin engine versions we see here, but the older Allison-engined Mustangs of different marks in the tactical reconnaissance role, in which that aircraft, which had proved so disappointing in many ways as a fighter, really excelled. And this is a very special Mustang because it's the newest one on the British Airshow circuit. It's owned by Fighter Aviation Engineering, and it's actually an Australian Commonwealth Aircraft Corporation built CA-18 Mustang Mark 21. It arrived with air leasing at Sywell late last year, having been shipped over from Australia. And it made its maiden flight in the UK on the day of our VE Day flying day here at Duxford in early May, and it undertook its second flight on UK shores into Duxford, so we can all have a look at it. And the colour scheme on this aircraft is quite something. It's painted as a P-51D with the name Jersey Jerk on the nose. And that was the personal aircraft. On the European continent. Original DC-6 model came the slightly stretched DC-6A passenger and freighter combi. Famously also used them for some years. And now another head of state, President Kenneth Kaunda, started flying in it. The fires that we're about to see shortly, the marks 11 and 14. Spitfire 14s like this were in service on D-Day with number 91 Squadron at West Malling in Kent, with number 322 Dutch Squadron at Hertford Bridge, and further to the west, number 610 Squadron at Harrowbeer had Mark 14s. Mission to perform. They escorted Hawker Typhoon fighter bombers on an attack mission to targets in the German-occupied Channel Islands in order to stop German E-boats that were based there from potentially interfering with the Allied invasion. And they were joined in dive and low-level strikes on enemy shipping in the western approaches by earlier Griffon engine Spitfire 12s of number 41 Squadron at Bolt Head. And their crew on Sally B, rolling out as the last Spitfires taxi in. But now, on the roll, it's the astonishing Rich Goodwin with his jet pits, and just look at this. Display circuit remotely like this, not even another Pitts. And Colin Hayes is someone who's been intimately involved with this aircraft's development. Colin, welcome. Just tell us what's so special about this one.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Everything is special about this aircraft. It is a standard S2S fuselage, but that's about where it ends. On the engine we have a cold air induction system, tuned exhaust. We also have the soar wings for higher roll rate, but the main obviously difference is that this aircraft has 2 jet engines on the side of the airframe. Richard is strapped into the aircraft. This is insufficient for these type of manoeuvres, so Richard is actually ratchet strapped into his seat with 2 ratchet straps, so he could hardly breathe, but that's what you need to be able to remain in control with these manoeuvres.
So what sort of G tolerances is the aircraft stressed to?
And the taxi on the grass behind along the back of the flight line to avoid the crowd placement.
And then it's Placid Lassie from the Tennyson Foundation on its 3rd transatlantic commemorative visit.
Eastern side of the airfield. There's proper sign there will be loading up with paratroopers ready for their trip to Normandy. Or who knows what at the time. What remains such a significant part of European history.